protect? That's the question you start asking from a CIP perspective. That is critical infrastructure protection perspective. You say which are the most urgent, and how do you get the most urgent? You do mathematical modeling. You based on frequency of attacks, like we've seen things happening in Day area now. We now know that okay, the manhole covers in that area, they are prone to these kinds of attack. Then you now come up with strategies on how to protect it. So I think, but that's even at a very low level. I think the real problem here is that we have critical infrastructure that are left undefended. And that to me is an absence of guardianship. That's from routine activity theory. You know, there's no capable guardian. You know, so, and how do you put in capable guardianship here for this kind of a problem? It is by being proactive, by thinking of the building a risk model, a risk management model that will up the that will identify the assets that need to be protected and the strategies that will be critical, that will be important, that will be successful in protecting them for you, and doing those things ahead, not on the back end. That is what the police and the civil defense does, what they do. That is arresting people, prosecuting them, and all. Look, remember, critical infrastructure, they are like Mr. Adio said in his report. He said they are the backbone of the economy. So if somebody breaks your backbone, I wonder how you're going to stand.
Well, thank you very much indeed for your submission this morning on this matter, especially the second focus which you just raised, and also is very, very important to this conversation. I want to return to Sokoto we have at Tambari Yebo, because what Dr. Ekomu told us this morning is very pertinent with respect to no protective mechanism put in place, even from construction. For instance, you said, he noted that these manholes ought to have been made more difficult, for anybody to uproot them and take them away so easily. So it's we may call it a construction error, ab initio, and that's why it is easy for them to remove it. That's for that one. But what he has also said, points to the fact that we lack technological application to certain issues, because when it comes to protection mechanism of such infrastructure, you cannot do that without the aid of CCTV. That is what is global presently. That is what is global, and if you do not do that, you tend to realize that, look, there's no little you can do to checkmate such vandals, in all their activities, be it a manhole, be it along the, maybe the pipeline vandalism, or maybe the electricity line vandalism, and what have you. So you require that. So to what extent, Tambari, can technology be applied to this? I know that in your time, as when you were serving, we didn't have the level of technology we have now, but now that we have CCTV and other technological applications being utilized in other crimes, how can we bring it here? Because from all our conversation this morning, it does appear that none of these critical infrastructure, none of them is protected. It is just, none is protected, either from the construction aspect of this infrastructure, or even the maintenance of the infrastructure, and now down to, checkmating, those who have decided to be vandalizing such infrastructure. So, Tambari, what do you think we should do going forward?
Well, thank you very much, Kieran. I want to tell you that definitely the deployment of technology to guard these critical infrastructures is very, very important. I know I have left service almost 4 years ago, but while in service, I have visited quite a number of countries. We always hear and we say that Nigeria is a giant of Africa, talking about economy, talking about per capita income, talking about anything you like. However, if you go to even smaller countries, go to South Africa, they are not as big as we are, definitely. The economy, everything is not like our own. Definitely our own is bigger. Go to Botswana, the small Botswana. Go to Egypt. You see these cameras are being deployed, on all the highways, on critical buildings, and so on and so forth. In marketplaces, superstores, everywhere, you see these. 10 years ago, if you go to any of these countries, you see these things that are being deployed. So if you do anything, even a superstore, they can easily pick you up, and the right actions normally will follow. In our case, because the paucity of funds, where's the money there's general neglect of in terms of providing funds to run these services. You know, Kirian, that you need money to buy all these equipments and so on and so forth to be able to function well, so that everybody will feel the impact. If anything is happening, or even terrorists, when they are attacking any place, you will know very easily. The cameras will pick it, and signals are sent immediately, and actions follow immediately. So I quite agree with ICOMO that we need to deploy this technology. It's very, very important. We cannot afford to remain behind. If we remain behind, we will continue where we are, and we will continue to grapple with the problems we have at hand. However, if we can make money available to all the security agencies, if you like, you can even, like he is trying to say, we should have a holistic plan that is going to address critical infrastructures. Maybe you can come up with something like that, and then set up a body that should be monitoring these things. If the traditional establishments, the police, the SSSM, those that are supposed to guard these things are failing or are not, living up to the expectation of the people, then why not? They can do such a thing so that we can see if we are going to have an improvement. Now, for instance, look at the general lack of light, electricity. I mean, it's a problem. Now we are doing this program. How many people are seeing it? How many people are seeing it? It's a big problem. So I quite agree with ICOMO that they should make money available. Technology should be the latest. Technology should be deployed, like I told you, in South Africa, in Botswana. Wherever you go, you see cameras on the time. I was in the United Nations peacekeeping since in 1989 to 90 in Namibia and South Africa, if you like, Angola, Zambia, all those places that are too poor compared to us. But those things are there. We saw them live at that time. That's almost 30 years ago now. And now we are lacking them here at home. Why? So we should give security the desired attention it requires. Both money to buy all these equipments, this aid to monitor of these critical infrastructures. Because if you destroy our pipelines, you destroy our high tension cable, you destroy almost everything that is the pride of the nation, then where are we going?
All right. Thank you very much, AIG Tambari, for the points that you have raised. You're talking about deploying technology in aid of the protection of our critical infrastructure. Now, what we know, say, from the Federal Capital Territory, about 8 years ago, CCTV cameras were installed around the city. Now, it is part of the protection of that critical infrastructure that is the subject matter of our conversation. How many of those CCTV cameras were working a few years later? And of course, many of them have been accidented or otherwise vandalized, which is why I'm coming back to the Director Omonuyi Olaloye, who is in charge of facilities, maintenance, and management. Now, Dr. Ona Ehomo in Lagos, amongst the points that he raised, talked about the fact that critical infrastructure is left unattended. And that, in his opinion, is representative of the absence of capable guardianship. I was just wondering, when he said that capable guardianship could refer to, one, security on its own, but it could also mean maintenance, routine maintenance. We've discussed on this program in the past that, look, our national culture of maintenance, where does it leave us? Is that the reason why we leave our infrastructure unattended? We build, we construct, and then we allow the thing to run itself. And then a few years later, one part begins to fall off, and then the vandals will go there like a jackal or a hyena, and then they begin to tear it apart. Why is it that we don't appear to have capable guardianship connected to a culture of maintenance?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we all know that that has been a national problem all the while. I remember that when we started with FCDA, there was no department of maintenance. For instance, FCDA started with the construction. It was after many years when we began to notice these problems coming up that the department of maintenance was established. And by the time it was established, a lot of things had gone wrong. We started noticing these vandalism. For instance, let's use this manhole cover as a case point. You know, initial design was a little bit faulty in the sense that we were using cast iron material for the cover. And because cast iron is attractive to vandals, they can easily melt it and use it for other purposes. That was what brought about the massive removal by the scavengers. By the time we did our research and realized that this was the problem, we decided to now begin to change the materials. I remember that in 2014 we did a sort of replacement, and we used ductile iron instead of cast iron. Ductile iron cannot easily be melted, so we were able to slow down the attack. And as I'm talking to you right now, the FCDA is also planning to deploy, do a massive deployment of manhole covers that are made from composite material with zero scrap value. These are the responses we are making, because we realize that, look, we can't our job is not to be running up and down to police station to go and report. What are we doing as engineers to make sure that the vandals cannot even make use of these materials? In addition to the material change, we also introduce secret lock. We hide the locking system there, where we have the key to open. Anytime we want to do maintenance, we open. And we also provide hinges so that these things cannot be removed. So these are some of the designs we are incorporating, just like a doctor said, to make sure that the vandals themselves cannot easily remove these things.
Well, Kieran, I just want to still stay with. I understand the point that you have explained, and that's noted. Let's return to maintenance, just routine maintenance. I'm sure Nigerians see this, in major cities. Take a look at street lights, for instance. There's some cover where you have the cables and the wires. From time to time, when you are driving past, you see persons who are not in uniform, who don't, like a gang of workers. They could just be anybody. They are walking there. There's no. After a while, the next time you are driving past that location, you'll find that for whole stretches you don't have any lights. So, when do your officers, in terms of maintenance and management, go around to be sure that, look, fine, this thing is off, or that we have seen a gang of workers who are not our staff? When do you get this done?
Yes, right now we have contracts for maintenance of street light within the city among capable contractors. Their job is not only to maintain, they are also to provide security. On each of our transformers, we have security men that are guiding them under the auspices of the contractors. Okay, our own men also, every night we go around on surveillance. During the day, we do surveillance too. And we have been sensitizing people, generally the residents, to see that if you see anybody tampering with transformer or working on, and they are not, even if they are in uniform, you accost them. Find out where are they coming from, And then also, if you suspect anybody tampering, you can also call our line, which is the call center line. But what we are saying is that we have a structure in place to make sure that these things are secured. And you will notice that recently, in the recent months, probably this year, our street light functionality has improved dramatically.
That's true?
Yes.
In the FCT?
In the FCT here, we have improved seriously. Particularly if you go along the airport road.
What is the secret?
Is our ability to pin down these vandals, to make sure that we have security in almost all our transformers, our cable lines. We monitor, we have surveillance, very effective system working. Because our major problem is vandalism. That's the truth. Because once a place is vandalized and you don't attend to it immediately, the vandalism continues. Sometimes in the night you see people digging along the road in the night. If you are driving and you see somebody digging along the road in the night,
these are rabbits, eh?
Yeah, when you are coming, they lie down in the drain. When they see your light coming, they lie down in the drain. These are the challenges that we are facing.
I think that's some of the things the CCTV can do for you, because some CCTVs don't even require, power or energy to function, because of course they have inbuilt, batteries, that can help you do that. Now, thank you indeed. Let's return to Lagos, where Dr. Odaihomu is. Dr. Homu, you raised one important issue: critical infrastructure protection plan. And one would like to know, what could be the component of such plan? A plan that could also be effectively, put in place by both federal government and subnational governments, and in fact, even the local government. So let us hear you out on what you really meant by a critical infrastructure protection plan that can be adopted and that can work in our own environment. And of course, I'd like you to add something concerning the CCTV we're talking about, which is a global, preventive, mechanism.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kiran, for having me back on. Well, the CIP plan is a 5-step protocol for use worldwide for protecting critical infrastructure. Now, where we miss the story all the time is that we are like people who were not there when someone was buried, and when we want to exhume him, we start exhuming from the leg. We are talking about CCTV and stuff, but it's much more than that. Protecting critical infrastructure is much more than a closed-circuit television system. Now, there's a 5-step protocol I want to give you. Number 1 is identify the critical infrastructure that needs to be protected. Where are they? What is the network? That's why first we must have a focus. Who is going to do this? And that's why I hazarded in my earlier submission that the Office of the National Security Advisor will be the best place, because they have the kind of skill set that will enable them conduct this kind of analysis. Now, if they don't know what to do, for goodness sake, let them reach out. There are people, even in Abuja there are some people who have come to your program here, like Mr. Kabir. He knows how to do this kind of stuff. There are models all over the place. Reach out to people, bring them in, and let them help you set up these things. Because I understand that our agencies tend to be police or military oriented. They really don't have the kind of skills that are available to people like myself or, Mr. Kabir that I just spoke about here, and so many other great people here in this country who go outside this country and do this for other countries. And yet here in Nigeria, it's not even recognized that there's a problem. But anyway, let's get to it. So they need to do a CI inventory. That's number 1. Now, they need to assess the vulnerabilities of these assets. That CI, they are assets, right? So you need to now assess the vulnerabilities. And we have so many methods for doing that. The VSAT model, the CAVA model, and I'm not going to get into what those are. But, there are many powerful tools. A lot of my students at Unilag and wherever, they know these things because we teach them how to do these things. Okay, that's number 2. Now, number 3, we need to normalize and prioritize the CI. What do we mean by normalization? Remember, CI is an interdependent group of systems and industries that drive the economy. Interdependence. So when you want to solve the problem of critical infrastructure, you have to normalize. So let me give you an example. Somebody is knocking down NEPA power lines, maybe let's take the parable of the manhole covers that are being stolen. I think that's very pedestrian. I want to go to bigger stuff. Knocking down power lines or knocking down telecom lines like the terrorists did in the Northeast. They later found that it was affecting their own ability to communicate. Certainly it was affecting society. It was affecting their ability. But what we need to do is, how does this feed into the overall flow of services, critical services, critical capabilities, whether it's healthcare, whether it's government operation, whether it's person-to-person communication, whether it's even social media communication. How does it feed into all of this, and what will be the effect? So normalization is, how does fixing one element of physical infrastructure affect another, so that you now systematize them. And then after that, you prioritize what needs to be solved first, which problem needs to be solved first, because you don't have enough. The problem with critical infrastructure, they are everywhere. You don't have enough money to fix everything. I think I heard my great brother, AIG Tambari, saying that just now, that we don't have the money to buy CCTV and put everywhere, certainly. And so we also don't have the money. I think he said the agencies are starved of funds and they are not able to buy these things. So that's number 3. So I said number 1, asset identification and plotting. Number 2, vulnerability assessment using various models, VSAT, CAVA, what have you. Number 3, the normalization and prioritization of assets that need to be protected, such that you now know, okay, this is where we are going to focus, and this is how it's going to affect other industries. And now number 4, the measures. What kind of security measures? That's where the CCTV comes in. When you are talking about, okay, what do we do? You say, okay, in certain areas, we'll use, the director of FCDA has said something very brilliant. He says they are using citizen awareness, they are using security, they are using patrols, so those are measures. Those are the things you do, because they have identified an area where they have frequency, that's probability, probability of occurrence of a loss event. They have frequency or frequent loss events, and such they now go and say, okay, in this area we'll have patrols going and identifying who is trying to destroy our assets, who is trying to steal the manhole covers, and arrest them or prevent them or whatever. I think he was talking about street lights. Yes, thank you for lighting up Abuja. And that's what it ought to be. But there's something he said which I was just talk about, the way we also do our things. You see, he said that when FCDA was founded, it was founded as a construction agency. Well, excuse me, when you are constructing, you have to be thinking of how we are going to elongate the life of this construction and keep it from the criminal element. You must think that. So it's unfortunate that's why it is now more expensive trying to run behind the bad guys, because we are letting the bad guys lead us and we are following them instead of being proactive, instead of, planning these things. So now, number 5, performance measurement. You have to now look at how effective are the control measures you've put in place, how effective are they in terms of protecting critical infrastructure. This, I submit, is what is lacking, whether in the Niger Delta with the pipeline vandalism, whether in Arekpo, where they are stealing all the oil in Lagos here, whether it's with the natural gas lines that are now, they are going to vandalize and they're going to cause huge conflagrations, or whether it's in the electric sector, whichever sector. This is what is basically lacking, that we don't have a model that we are following. And these things I'm saying, I'm just giving you banners. There are so many powerful things to be done in there to identify and mitigate attacks on critical infrastructure. And that...
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Onah Ehomo, and indeed the other 2 guests, one in Sokoto and the other here with us in the Abuja studios. Dr. Onah Ehomo, you've raised a number of points, but I just wanted to mention this in terms of having a plan. It would appear, I should say, that there probably is a plan a resident or permanent domicile rather in the Office of the National Security Advisor. Now, while you were taking off the actors in vandalism, you mentioned saboteurs, militancy, and the sources, and then insurgency, and then foreign subversive. Now, if you recall, in 2011, when Boko Haram started extending the frontiers of their attacks to the Federal Capital Territory, which is Abuja, the then National Security Advisor, the late General Azazi, did, of course, indicate that there was then, at the time, a need to come up with a critical infrastructure protection mechanism, which is why you started seeing around major buildings in Abuja crash barriers to prevent, the booby-trapped vehicles from driving into those particular structures. I believe that there were other elements embedded in that, but how far they've been carried forward are the issues that we've also talked about in the 5-step protocol that you indicated. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll take the tweets and then get on with the aspects of the conversation.
I'm Deputy Comptroller of Customs Joseph Atta, the spokesman for the Joint Security Exercise. Over a period of time, either through indifference or deliberate non-compliance to the ECOWAS protocol on transit of goods by our neighbors, the Nigerian Customs Service have been raising this issue. MOUs were signed severally. They were broken as soon as they were signed. We've seized over 32,050 kg bags of rice. And that is a huge impact. And then the fact that the coming in of this foreign rice have been completely shut down. We've gone around, we've received testimonies of farmers who, before now, found it difficult to sell one truck on a market day. These people say it now that those who could not sell one can now sell up to 20 trucks.
Wash my hand from oil bunkering.
General, what you gonna yarn? What did the yarn serve? I don't understand though.
Because they spoil our water and our environment. And they cause our people serious harm. Militants is there. You know who? Me, I not do again Sam. Because why? Change begins with me.
General Tombu!
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're still watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We thank you for staying with us up to this moment on the show. Now, before we take some tweets that we have here this morning, let's go to Sokoto where we have Tambari Yabo. Tambari, you've listened to Ehomu one more time on some of the plans that he has preferred, critical infrastructure protection plan that he has laid out. It's about 5 components of that plan. I'd like you to also dissect such plan and see if deployed, whether it can address the issue of protecting critical infrastructure. And I also like you to add, you have earlier on mentioned that the nation may not have the resources, you have paucity of funds to be able to fund the technology aspect of security, which is, I keep mentioning this because if you look at all the major crimes committed across the globe, they were all detected by CCTV. 99.9% of them were detected by CCTV. Now, talking about terrorism, and, of course, we have learned that, the Boko Haram have been, when they were active, have been, bringing down bridges and other critical infrastructure. With satellite, you can actually detect the movement of terrorists wherever they are. they are detectable. So that's why I keep bringing in this technology aspect of it, because if it is not imbibed, the Nigeria is part of the globe, and the globe, we are advancing. You've talked about countries in the Southern Africa where you've been to 10 years ago or 20 years ago that had all those mechanisms in place. So what we're saying is this: how do we address this? Because the spate of vandalism in Nigeria is increasing by the day. Well, of course, manhole is just infinitesimal, if you ask me, compared to the level of vandalism that we've had in other sectors of our national life. So what do we do? How do we incorporate the 5 plan by Ona Ehomu, and of course the technology component?
Thank you very much, Kieran. The 5 plans he has identified look very beautiful on the surface. But you know that even before this idea comes in, we had so many departments. And I'm sure in those respective departments, the SSS, the police, they have all these plans that IHOMO has identified. But the problem is always who is to take care. Where will the resources come from to implement these plans? Thank God that Mr. IHOMO has now suggested that such a plan should be based in the Office of the National Security Advisor, because he knows that that is where the action normally will follow easier than when it is with these departments that are directly under the National Security Advisor. Now, if you put them there and the necessary attention is not given, you will still come back to square one where we are. You will still come back to square one, and these things will continue unabated. The day examples we have re-emphasized, we have in this program, will still surface. So I hope the plans look good. They are good on the surface. However, implementation is a big problem. Why is the money? Why is the resources to implement them? Why did our major traditional institutions like the SS, the police, and other security agencies that have been put in place now, why have they failed? And we are having the problem we have, vandalization of national critical infrastructures. So I hope that when they brought such plans and they domesticate them in the Office of the National Security Advisor, maybe we could see a change. We hope, we pray. And like he said, there is also the need to ensure that, because all over the world, like you said, Kirian, the world is changing, it's dynamic every day. So if you don't use technology, you are definitely going to be left behind. That's why it has taken so long to fight terrorism in Afghanistan and other places where it is. And now in Nigeria, for over 10 years, we have been fighting it because we don't have the necessary technology. We have enough men in the military, the police, and other supportive security agencies, and they are doing their very best. However, because they lack these technological, new technologies that they can deploy to monitor the movement of these insurgents and other criminals, we are still grappling with the problem. Just yesterday or this morning, I heard the governor of Borno State complaining that there are 63 local governments in his place that have been ruled by the Boko Haram, so to speak, and that he is calling on the federal government and the military to do something. You see, and this, he has forgotten the fact this thing has been going on for over 10 years, because we need to give necessary attention to it, and not necessarily attention through coercion by the military people and the other security agencies. Like we have discussed in this program, provide the necessary investigation so that you can monitor them. You do more of active work. Because when you do more of proactive work, you prevent them from even acting. It's better than you allow them to act, and you begin to help that skelter to find a solution and to take causes and so on and so forth. So I think that They are very good ideas. However, I hope the government will give it the desired attention, and they should also, in addition to what he said, they should also cooperate the security agencies to run such plans when they come into effect. I think.
All right. Thank you very much, AIG Tambari. Now, we indicated that we have reactions from our viewers. Let's quickly go through those reactions. Dele Jack Solomon, as it stands, existing critical infrastructure protection techniques in Nigeria are weak, unassertive, and companies are too slow in mitigating the effects of attacks on their facilities. Now, it is recommended that robust policies and high-tech equipment protection strategies be utilized by companies and then the government. Furthermore, there is need for the establishment of community anti-crime groups, introduction of toll-free lines for emergency purposes, and penalty for damages to power facilities should be stiffer.
All right, now Francis Obi says in most countries of the world, the destruction of critical national infrastructure is considered a treasonable act. And I think it is so in Nigeria. That is why workers in such places take an oath of office to defend with all their strength and might, God being their helper.
All right. Well, it's Francis Obi. Thanks for your tweet. The destruction of critical infrastructure isn't treason. It's a very serious offense. It's not treason. At some point, if you recall, I think it was 1975 or thereabout, there was a piece of legislation that prescribed death penalty for tampering with pipelines for crude oil or for refined petroleum products. It was death penalty. Of course, that's not treason. It's a very serious offense. Exactly. Murder, for instance, isn't treason. So let's be clear what we are indicating. Ibrahim Moduaji, government needs to enforce stiffer penalties for the protection of critical national infrastructure. No government will sit and watch miscreants or vandals destroy national assets.
Now, Law Alpha C says it is certain critical national infrastructure will be ascertained by the transparent and patriotic picture of President Buhari's administration. It calls for support devoid of sabotage and bad blood.
Utulo Sunday, securing national infrastructure is everybody's business, and we must do what it takes to protect them from any form of vandalism.
Dele Jack Solomon, government should beef up security around critical infrastructure nationwide to prevent vandals from destroying critical economic infrastructure. Furthermore, the security agencies should be empowered to excel with their job of protecting national and private critical infrastructure in the country.
And Mutana Farouk, or rather, I take this from Mangai Ahmadu. It says the activities of vandals are a major constraint to sustainable development in Nigeria. Citizens should be more patriotic and stop these acts of vandalism for Nigeria to progress.
Mutana Farouk, the maintenance of critical infrastructure is germane. Building new ones without taking care of the existing ones is tantamount to development retrogression. Many, but few, Nigerians see public infrastructure as government properties. Who is the government?
Very pertinent question, Kirian. Yeah. That's the question we'd like to pose to Dr. Ona Ekhomo. Dr. Ona Ekhomo, well, you talked about the various protocols that we can use to protect national infrastructure, and AIG Tambari was also talking about the situations in countries in Southern Africa. Well, CCTV are a new phenomenon in countries around the Southern African sub-region. In the past, when they have critical infrastructure, you didn't see their citizens vandalizing such infrastructure. So what kind of citizen education might be useful as a component of the protocol to ensure greater protection? Because part of what the guest said earlier, and this would tend to resonate with those who observe the vandalism situation in the country. Oh, somebody is arrested, so it's a young person, he's an armed robber will go and kill a person, but here he is, he just stole a manhole, or he just stole some electrical cables. He steals one, another person steals another, and then the entire community is in darkness. Or alternatively, you find that, the economy is hard, it's looking for all kinds of things. So how do we shape these rationalizations in order to formulate appropriate citizen education, and of course with the appropriate deterrence in the event of running against the law?
Thank you very much, sir, for the question. Well, I think This reminds me a lecture I gave some time ago in one of the military institutions. I said that in this country, when somebody is vandalizing critical infrastructure, it's called a joke. They make jokes about it. They call it like harvesting pipelines. When people go to vandalize pipelines, they say they are harvesting because they say the development is in the pipeline. The government agencies normally say, when they ask where is the development, they say it's in the pipeline. So the youths now go and dig up the pipelines and say they are trying to harvest, they're trying to get the development fast. So, but it's not a joke. The truth of it is it's a very serious matter. It's poor modeling. Modeling, I mean, modeling from our political elite, from whoever is out there, whoever is the big guy. What kind of examples are we showing? And then poor narration, poor communication. How are we communicating with our citizens, our public, to let them know that these infrastructure actually are your heritage, they are yours, and they are for this economy and for your own use and for that of your children after you. You know, if you can get, and that's where the National Orientation Agency and some of these other agencies come into play. If you can get to a level where people, you can explain the meaning of action to them successfully and let them buy into it, let them take it as their own, say that, oh yes, Nigeria really does belong to me. It's easier for people to now act that out. So if they see somebody like the director of FCDA said, see somebody vandalizing the NEPA, whatever, the light, the street light, they can now call, and you must give them the means to communicate, because it's not just saying communicate with us, you must give them the means to communicate. We've been saying for a long time, get a national emergency phone system. Not, okay, for example, he said FCDA control room. I don't know their control room number. But if they say that the emergency line in Nigeria, throughout Nigeria, is 112, or like we have here in Lagos, 767, everybody knows 767. You can say, hey, I just saw a guy toppling a NEPA power line, do something about it. You don't even have to disclose your identity. You pass it on to the agency.
All right. We are actually running out of time. Dr. Ehomu, we would like to appreciate your contribution this morning and this conversation. We'd like to thank you for being part of our program this morning. That's Dr. Ona Ehomu, President, Association of Industrial Security and Safety Operations of Nigeria. Thank you very much indeed. Kingsley, your question was actually on citizen education. Mm-hmm. How can citizens be educated? Where is the patriotism? We lack it. We lack it seriously in this country, and it's all part of our developmental problems and difficulties we've encountered over the years. And at this point,
it's not the developmental problem. There are poorer countries. Those citizens of those countries don't go about vandalizing.
Exactly.
Don't go about vandalizing their infrastructure. I mean, just what is it? Shall we say the anger of the vandals against the state?
I think it's all part of it.
I think that's the kind of thing that we
our own national cake. Let's get our own national cake.
That cake that they are eating is poisonous.
Exactly. All right. And at this point, Omoni Olale, I would like to thank you again for being here this morning. He's the Director of Facilities, Maintenance and Management, Federal Capital Territory Authority, Abuja. Thank you for coming. And from our Sokoto Network Center, Tambari Yabo, Assistant Inspector General of Police, retired. We thank you for always being part of our show each time we call on you. It's been a wonderful time sharing your thoughts with you on this program.
All right, so that does it for us today on Good Morning Nigeria. I would like to thank you for tuning in. The program is back tomorrow, last for the week, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, go enjoy the rest of your day. My name is Kingsley Osadolo.
And I am Kyrian Umayo.